Over the last 3 years, it's been our privilege to focus on a particular special that takes place this month at Investigation Discovery, a special dealing with the world of civil rights crimes that have been unsolved. Over the last 3 years, we've had Keith Beauchamp, the creator and producer of that series of specials called The Injustice Files. Now, 2 weeks from tonight, a new special will pick up the cause. It's called Hate in America. Here's the opening scene, narrated by former CNN anchor, now Al Jazeera America anchor, Tony Harris.
It's almost impossible for me to comprehend that James Craig Anderson was intentionally run over and killed simply because of the color of his skin. But Darrell Dedman is arrested and indicted by a grand jury for killing Anderson because of his race.
To the charge laid in the indictment, how do you wish to plead, Mr. Dedman?
Not guilty.
During the extensive local and federal investigation into Anderson's murder, law enforcement is shocked to learn that Anderson's attackers have a history of race-based violent attacks.
The FBI did an excellent job of finding other instances these same people were involved in, driving around the Jackson community, shooting ball bearings through slingshots at black people, beating black people up, throwing rocks and bottles at them. I call them the modern-day Ku Klux Klan.
You do?
They're not belong to the Ku Klux Klan. They don't belong to skinheads. But like the Klan used to go out and throw bottles at blacks, riding them down the road in their cars.
These are people that would take their fist and strike people that they didn't know, they didn't know anything about. There was only one common denominator, their race. They were a pack of wolves looking for people to hunt, and the people they were hunting were black people.
Investigators say Anderson was killed when dead.
News of Anderson's murder and the earlier race-fueled attacks spreads through Jackson like wildfire.
I felt like I had just been, like my body had just went back like 40, 50, 60 years to the civil rights movement. I mean, I was completely taken out of my body. We got on the phone with people like immediately and said, not in my city, we are not doing this.
You call this one, you call that one, we'll call that one over there.
Yeah, and saying, what we're gonna do, what we're gonna do.
We want to stand up and let the world know, not only do we not tolerate this kind of thing, but we're much better than this.
The case ignites the community and raises uncomfortable questions about race in a state with a tumultuous and violent past.
Hate in America is a unique co-production between NBC News' Peacock Productions Unit and ID. Joining us live here in New York, the two executive producers on both sides of the situation. First, from Peacock Productions, executive producer Elizabeth Fisher. Elizabeth, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And from ID, Lorna Thomas. Lorna, welcome in.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Elizabeth, we'll start with you. What brought about this partnership?
Well, we've been working with Investigation Discovery for many years on many different shows, and this was really their brainchild, their idea. They came to us and said, we really want to look at hate in America, and so together we collaborated on the best way that we could put together a really powerful hour, and they had already had Tony Harris lined up to be the host of the show and a very immersive talent that he is.
Lorna, you've been doing specials with Keith Beauchamp, The Injustice Files, for several years now. The last one, which we covered last year, was Sundown Towns, which maybe for some people might have ended up being very prophetic in terms of what happened this summer in Ferguson, Missouri, and other places. How do you want this special to take what Keith did forward?
I think that's the idea, is to continue the conversation, the discussion, and the examination of hate crimes in the U.S. So it's really building on that and continuing sort of in the same themes that Keith had covered in Injustice Files.
How did, Lorna, how did what happened in Ferguson, what happened here in New York, what's happened elsewhere around the country with these various situations, how did it impact the kind of documentary that we'll see in 2 weeks?
Well, it's very interesting because we were in the middle of production on the special when Ferguson happened, and it caused a lot of discussion, right, Liz? We talked about sort of how to, whether to cover that case or how to proceed, but it really did inform what we were doing and inspire us, and to really realize that this was how timely this was. And we knew that perhaps we will be revisiting the Ferguson case in another, installment of Hate in America.
And Elizabeth, Tony was in Ferguson to cover the situation along with Joey Chan and other people for Al Jazeera. He's also done reports on other such situations. In terms of getting him, what kind of perspective, what kind of thinking did he bring to making this special happen?
Well, I mean, he was definitely engaged from the beginning, and we would bounce ideas off of him, and I think he immediately saw the value of doing the James Craig Anderson case, as our opening story. And it's true that all the while that we were talking about this, he was in Ferguson, making us feel that we were really, tapping into something incredibly relevant. But I think when we talked about the James Craig Anderson case, it became, if a single case can be sort of a poster child case, this was the one that, everybody's jaw hit the floor when we heard the details of it. That this could be happening in modern-day Mississippi was really a stunning fact. I remember reading about it when it first happened, but then to have the opportunity to really take a deep dive and revisit it was really pretty exceptional.
And Lorna, as you develop a special like this, do you find that there are cases that you end up saying, okay, we can't cover this, we only have so much time to work with? It breaks your heart that you can't have this case and this case and this case involved in your special?
Yeah, there's a lot of tough decisions that have to be made, when tackling this topic, because unfortunately there are so many cases, but there was a lot of discussion in terms of we really wanted to have a variety of cases to really show. To make sure that a lot of communities were represented, because I think the whole idea of hate in America, how prevalent it is across the country and how many people it affects. But yes, it is always tough, so that's what we are really hoping, and the goal is to be able to keep producing these and share more stories.
This original documentary, Hate in America, premieres 2 weeks from tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Pacific Time on Investigation Discovery. As I mentioned, it's a co-production between ID and NBC News' Peacock production show, which has produced a wide variety of specials for different television networks. We've got the two executive producers involved in this special. From NBC News Peacock, Elizabeth Fisher, and from ID, Lorna Thomas. They're both joining us here in New York. This half hour on Tomorrow will be televised. Simon Applebaum here with you live from the studios of Brooklyn Independent Media, the Barclays Center. You have a question or comment for either of our producers, both? Be ringing. Give us your thoughts at this number, 646-652-2906, or use our chat room, Simon Apple 04 my name. Again, we will either be on next Monday for President's Day or the day after. We hope to have live people involved in a new series, original scripted series for Cine Mexicano. It's the Mexican Spanish language television network, features movies, including some made for the medium, but this time they're doing an original series in English known as Blood Border. And as we speak, it is being produced along the U.S.-Mexico border. We hope to have either next Monday or Tuesday the producer, who is also the star, and the director. DirecTV and Cine Mexicano are supposed to release a press release about that project before the end of the day. So again, that's either next Monday or Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, right here on Tomorrow will be televised. Elizabeth, what is the main point of this special? What are we going to find out about this subject that is going to shock us, surprise us, maybe turn us in a different direction?
Well, I think one of the striking things is, as Lorna was saying, we really wanted to hit the topic from many different angles. We didn't want, as a group of producers in New York, to start pointing the finger at the South and say, okay, this is where this happened. So we really made sure to cover hate crimes that took place, in various parts of the country. We've got the South, we've got the Midwest, and we've got New York, the Northeast right here. So I think one of the things, the takeaway is this is happening now, this is happening everywhere, and for very different reasons. The targets that we include are people who've been attacked because of the color of their skin, because of their religious beliefs, and because of their sexual orientation. So we really tried to encompass a wide wide range of areas. So there's nobody that can turn around and say, oh, but that's just there, or that's just here.
And Lorna, why does it happen just here or just there? What's the roots? What makes this happen? What breaks this loose?
I think fear has a lot to do with it, fear of difference. And I think that is probably, that's the age-old, how can we solve this? And I think education is the key. And I think films like this and others like it are key in trying to change the tides of hate and really try to educate people and to reduce the fear of difference. I think that's really, I think that's the big issue.
Elizabeth, how much cooperation did the people involved in these situations give you, whether it is the police, whether it's attorneys, the perpetrators, the victims themselves? How much were you able to get from different sides of the table, if you will, to create to paint a complete picture as possible of hate in America?
Right. I mean, one of the key factors here is that we worked in partnership with the Southern Poverty Law Center, which, as you know, has been tracking hate crimes for many, many years. And so they were helpful in terms of linking us up with some key players in the James Craig Anderson case because they were involved in a civil aspect of that case. Most of the people involved in these cases were very willing to work with us. We did want to get access to some of the perpetrators, but because there were some ongoing legal issues, some of them were just not made available to us. But certainly family members of victims were unbelievably forthcoming and very poised, I might add, in the wake of such, horrific attacks that affected their loved ones. So the show, as you know, is based on 3 different cases. There's the James Craig Anderson case that we talked about where this man was literally run over by by someone driving a pickup truck simply because of the color of his skin. There was the awful shooting in Oak Creek, Wisconsin by Wade Michael Page at a Sikh temple. And then there was a gay couple that was attacked on the streets of New York City. And, the first 2, we were not able to interview victims because they were all killed in the attacks. But in the third one, we were able to interview a victim, and that was really illuminating to have Tony sit down across from Nick Porto, the man who sustained the attack, and hear from him, how he thought it was vital to bring his story forward and not be afraid and not try to keep it quiet, but to take that extra step and continue bring focus to something that should not be hidden, because we hear that these cases are very much underreported.
Lorna, why are they underreported? I mean, we saw the clip from the first part of the program that the first case did get a lot of attention on local news. There were marches and so forth. But why are some of these stories not reported? Why are they not picked up by the media?
Underreported. Well, I think in terms of that's complicated, because I do think when we're talking about underreported, we were looking at. I think if we go outside, people like to think of if it just affects their particular area, their particular part of the country, their particular city, it doesn't often get the nationwide coverage that it needs to get. Even these New York stories of Nick Porto's attack. In New York, that didn't make the national headlines, but that was a big story here in New York, and it's a story that can definitely echoes in different parts of the country. So why is that? I don't know. I think it's people think, oh, this is just happening here. This is our private. Maybe they don't want the Mississippi, the case of Jackson, Mississippi, as Jordan, one of the residents there, talks about giving the state a bad name or a bad, continuing the bad reputation. So I think there's a lot of reasons for people to not want to necessarily have this get the nationwide coverage.
Mm-hmm.
I think I should add that when I said it was underreported, that what we learned in researching LGBT hate crime is that a lot of those folks, it's not that the media is underreporting it, it's that people won't, if they're attacked, they might quietly go home and try to, heal their wounds, but not come forward and say, this happened to me, and they're not going to press charges because they're afraid.
We are speaking with the two executive producers behind Hate in America. It's a special on Investigation Discovery coming up 2 weeks from tonight, 8 p.m. East Pacific time. From NBC News' Peacock Productions, Elizabeth Fisher, and from ID, Laura Thomas. They're both with me here in New York on Tommorrow Televised on this Monday afternoon edition for February 2015. Simon Applebaum, who also from New York. Happy to have you with us. By the way, if you are joining us from New England, where a lot of snow is coming down, please, if you don't need to go out and travel, let the authorities do their job, clear the roads. There's a lot of snow on the ground because of the other storms that have happened in the last 2 weeks. So please take precautions, take care, check on your loved ones, and thanks for joining us and spending some time with us. You have a question or comment for our producers? Give us a call, 646-652-2906, or use our chat room, Simon Apple 04 by name. Coming up on the program Friday, big 90-minute edition from BET's first scripted miniseries, The Book of Negroes, which also premieres 1 week from tonight. We will have executive producer Damon De Oliveira, and from The Wire, executive producer, co-writer, and director Clement Virgo. Then from Bosch, the new Amazon Studios series based on the books by Michael Connelly, we'll have executive producer Heinrich Baston. And then Tina Dalton from Nat Geo Wild's miniseries for this weekend, Wild Australia. They're all with us Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific here on Tomorrow We Televise. Elizabeth, it's very interesting about the timing of this program because the week after this runs, ABC is launching a new series called American Crime from John Ridley, the Oscar-winning writer of 12 Years a Slave. He wrote and directed a lot of the program. It deals also with crimes that end up being hate crimes. I had the chance this week, yesterday, to see the second and third episodes. It's an extraordinary show. Keep your fingers crossed. We're trying to get Ridley on the program in a couple of weeks. But I'm very curious whether, this program and what ABC is doing is going to hopefully promote a dialogue, a real constructive dialogue about what constitutes hate crimes, and more importantly, the impact that these crimes have after the fact on the families involved and the communities involved.
Well, I do hope so. One of the things that we tried to do as we were especially wrapping up the hour was to talk about really some constructive things that we can take away from this. And one of the really striking components of the show is that when you look at the community in Oak Creek, Michigan, that sustained this horrible shooting at their Sikh temple where 6 people were killed and a really brave officer, Lieutenant Murphy, who sustained 15 gunshot wounds, that what the Sikh community decided to do was, instead of sort of only focusing on their anger and their resentment, is that they wanted to really think about a way of turning something positive out of this. And so they decided to try to become more really immersed in their community and not living in a silo, so to speak. And one of the young men whose father was killed at the temple, he also, interestingly, joined forces with a former skinhead and they created a group called Serve to Unite, and they go around to schools and they teach tolerance and they promote healing. And so, I do think that even the people who work at the Southern Poverty Law Center, where they obviously see a lot of negativity and hate, there is this feeling that most people really don't want to see this happening in our country. And so the more we shine a light on it, the more we can figure out really ways to try to combat it and not become numb to just another bad headline.
Lorna, where does this collaboration go from here? What follow-up is going to get done, either, both on television but also in other venues?
Well, there's definitely a huge educational, component to that, and Southern Poverty Law Center is a great resource, and we are making sure that the word gets out about the film and gets it in front of as many people as possible to see it. And the idea is to keep the collaboration going and to keep examining this issue. These are 3 stories, but there are many more. And I think it's really important, as Elizabeth said, that it's really key to show also what people are doing to make a difference. in that, especially in Wisconsin, when they came together to unite, to go into schools and really educate. It starts with young people, getting young people to understand and to learn not to hate. Hate starts, comes from the home, comes from the schools. We need to figure this out and really get to the bottom of it. And I think films like this really help to get the discussion going and helps to educate people.
And Elizabeth, picking up on that point, is there anything you see constructive out of what you've done and what we're going to see in 2 weeks that you think we can all take away? That can we have a constructive dialogue? Can we have people sitting around a table, discussing race matters, discussing this whole idea of prejudice and hate in America in a way that we respect each other's views and we come away maybe, with some solutions, with some direction?
I mean, I do think so. I'm going to be really eager to see how the show is received after it airs, because I do think that it's quite an impactful hour of television. And I know just yesterday I was reading the newspaper, and there was a column in the New York Times where Frank Bruni talked about being afraid to walk down the street holding the hand of his boyfriend. And it really struck a chord with me, because I thought, here we are in the middle of a progressive city that's supposedly quite tolerant of these things. And I think that working on this, my antenna is up. I'm picking up on all sorts of things that I might not have had I not worked on this. So I hope that for people who see it, they have the same experience.
Mm-hmm. I hope so. Frank, personal thought, I hope a lot of antennas come up about this, and not only about this, but other projects, whether dramatic or factual, about the subject of prejudice and hate in America. Once again, I was really moved last night by watching American Crime, the episodes 2 and 3. I think ABC's got an extraordinary show in their hands. And as I said, I hope we can get John Ridley on this program. I think it is a tremendous show. And it opens up a lot of questions and a lot of doors about how we not only deal with understanding this subject, more importantly, what do we do about this subject that's constructive and leads to more tolerance among everybody in this country. Hate in America happens 2 weeks from tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern and Pacific time on Investigation Discovery. Check local listings for IDs placed on cable and satellite in your area. And for more on this special plus additional material, you can go to this website, investigationdiscovery.com. That's investigationdiscovery.com. Again, 2 weeks from tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Pacific time on Investigation Discovery, Hate in America, an original co-production between Investigation Discovery and the Peacock Productions unit of NBC News. Elizabeth Fisher from Peacock, Lorna Thomas, from ID. Thank you both for joining us. Congratulations in advance on having this special off the ground, and let's hope it really leads to something very, very special in terms of how we in this country all see this issue and do something about it.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Elizabeth and Lorna. All the greatest. Take care.
Okay, take care.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye.
Elizabeth Fisher and Lorna Thomas joining us live here in New York.